This episode of Thrillers and Killers is brought to you by Anchor.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer.
When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more.
It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, it's totally free.
Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Thrillers and Killers podcast with Doug, Aaron, Brianna. Jacob's almost dead, so he's not going to be with us in this world for much longer. Just kidding. He'll be back maybe next episode. We'll see. But today we're going to be doing Scream, the original 1996, directed by Wes Craven.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Written by Kevin Williamson. Produced by Kathy Conrad. Kerry Woods. Starring... Oh, no.
David Arquette.
Thank you. Neve Campbell. Courtney Cox. Matthew Lillard. Rose McGowan. Skeet Ulrich. And Drew Barrymore.
Wonderful. It's weird that they list David Arquette first, because he plays Officer Dewey. And definitely not the main character.
I might not know what I'm talking about, but I'm fairly certain that they get listed based on their how much they're paid to be in the movie.
Really?
So wouldn't Courtney Cox be more?
Wasn't she? This was pre-Friends, wasn't it? No, this was mid-Friends.
I was about to say.
It was right at the beginning. It was like, this is 1994 is when Friends started, and then 1996 is when this came out.
Well, if you look up like the Force Awakens poster, it's like Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's not even in the fucking movie until the very end. Carrie Fisher, and then it's Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Lupita Nyong'o. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
I think you actually did. She plays Red in Us.
Correct.
Yeah, so we got our main character. I think it's a Neve Campbell. I could be wrong.
Around. I did pretty good, to be honest.
No, I think, yeah, you did good. She plays Sidney Prescott. And then obviously Courtney Cox, she plays Gail Weathers. Gail Weathers.
Yes.
Matthew Lillard plays Stu. He's my favorite character. I don't know what he's doing in this fucking movie, but I love it. I can't believe Wes Craven let him go as much as he did. I mean, I'm assuming he was just doing whatever. Can't imagine this is how this character was written, right? It looks like he's just fucking around the whole time.
I think they did it on purpose.
I mean, I think he probably was like supposed to be goofy, but I think Matthew Lillard probably took some liberties there. But Wes Craven is like storied horror director. He was Nightmare on Elm Street. He also did some other things like Last House on the Left. Some people like that. I don't. And Red Eye with Cillian Murphy. That shit's good.
So I guess, Aaron, do you want to explain
the
new format we're deciding to go for?
Yeah, we're going to give it a shot. Basically, we don't want to run through everything point by point anymore. Well, not anymore, but like we don't want to run through everything point by point. So we have formulated a new way to do this, and we're going to talk about just 10 things that we think makes a movie good.
But before you go everything, we should go over everything. We should probably shout out the dude that wrote this article that we're basing this on. All right, so basically, in our quest to deliver the absolute best podcast content. We found this article by M.G. Jasper, 10 Essential Elements for Movie Reviews. And
Yeah, that's what we're basing it off of.
yeah, he calls it the cinema scale. And pretty much his point is it's trying to be like a more fair. It's trying to be the most objective it can be for reviewing a movie.
Yeah, because I think at the end of at some of these episodes, we've realized sometimes it's kind of hard to formulate why you like movies, and just because you like or don't like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or bad. So I think we're gonna try and do some stuff that's more like something you can actually tangibly explain, and I think this is the basis we're gonna try and start that on. Are these 10 steps?
Pretty much what we're going to do is his 10 essential elements for the movie reviews. And then all of them are broken up in the like 2 sub elements, I guess. And we're just going to discuss them. So,
yeah. And so going down this list, then the number one thing was plot. But the plot, it was the most important thing for us because one, it's the easiest way for us to kind of explain the movie and go over what happens in it. And two, it's probably the most important part of the movie, at least in like the aspect of the movie making and like stuff like that. I mean, you can enjoy movies that have no plot, but like this is what kind of is definitively like what can drive a movie to be better or good.
The first part of plot is story arc.
Yeah, so with story arc, we'll take a look at like the exposition, the rising action, climax. You know, your typical plot line stuff, and we'll go over like inciting incidents, and then build from there. Talk about the movie in that way.
And the second part is plausibility.
As so this will just be like you can have a plot line, but if it doesn't make any sense and doesn't like if shit's just happening without explanation or like reason, that's when we'll talk about it that way. And then the next one, the next step, I guess, I don't know what they're called, but is attraction, which the best way I can.
They're called elements.
Elements, good. The next element is attraction, which I guess the best way to explain that would just be, is the movie interesting? Is the basis like something that people would want to watch? The next element we wanted to look at was theme.
So identity, pretty much, like we should just be able to identify the themes that are in the movie, what message the movie is trying to send, and then intrigue. The theme should be like intriguing. So like not intriguing, then it's like stupid.
So for acting, we have the characters. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Like, are the characters written well, or are they just kind of like useless characters? And then we have performance. So that's kind of looking at how the actors or actresses actually performed their characters.
Okay, yeah, that acting is pretty straightforward. The next one we're going to look at is dialogue. What are the subgenres for that?
Storytelling and context.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Is the dialogue moving the story forward in a storytelling manner, and then context doesn't make sense. I'm assuming. We want to make sure that this isn't just gibberish.
Yeah. So like, the example in Mr. Jasper's article here is if in The Patriot they didn't talk like they talked in 1776, or like example for us would be like I mean, we've both seen The Patriot probably anyways, but
yes.
like the witch, if it didn't have
An actual like North England accent. Yeah, I
Or
got
like
you.
the
Old
movie
English.
300. I don't think that's a thriller or killer, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, if they just talk like everyday people, I could. Yeah, I see what you're trying to go for.
All right, cinematography number 6. We got 2 sub elements: visual language and lighting, setting, and wardrobe.
I mean, it's kind of talking about the shot selection, camera work, the
Okay.
angles. Like, it should kind of flow together.
So like,
Are you trying to say like if the director has his mind made up, he is making this movie and it's shot cohesively in one style?
Yes.
yeah, so like, I'm trying to think of a good example.
I think that
Okay,
movie-
so this is a really simple example. Imagine Cloverfield. Like
it's all handheld.
some random scene in the movie. They're like, fuck it, we're gonna like switch to like standard filming.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And
So
then the
yeah,
next one was setting wardrobe stuff like that. That's pretty straightforward, I think.
yeah.
The next one was editing and effects.
So the first one for editing is the pace and the tone.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably that's where I would fit atmosphere into. Is like, yeah, the movie makes a definitive effort to keep the same like visible tone throughout. It would make sense if we were watching Jaws and halfway through it turned into a comedy, and then at the end of it, it turned into a horror movie. Like they like you set your idea for this movie, and then you make it a set way that all cohesively makes sense.
So like,
And pacing is just like we aren't bored for 30 minutes doing nothing, and then everything happens really fast. You want to space your movie out so you stay interested the whole time, but it's not overwhelming.
in most of the movies we're gonna be doing for thrillers and killers, there's gonna be like for the tone, it's gonna be like building suspense like most of the movie, and then the pace is gonna like gradually increase.
The pace for like
whole
horror
movie.
movies and stuff is usually pretty slow to start, and then it ramps up to a high climax. Not all movies are like that, but that's a standard.
Yeah.
What we're looking at for like thrillers, and with specifically with thrillers, it's pretty important that the payoff you have at the end is good, because like these movies, they have so much buildup that if we got to the end of it and they just had this awful payoff, it's not worth it to watch. So the thrillers and horror movies specifically, they wait to the end of their movies a lot more heavy than some other movies do.
All right, so effects, that's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
If it's got the good shit, or if it looks like Twilight werewolves.
First one.
Number 8, we have sound and music. So for the 2 subcategories, we have music, so harmony. Is the music kind of matching the movie? And then we have sounds. It says authenticity.
So for harmony, a good example would be Interstellar, obviously.
Yeah.
If they played fucking rap music the whole time in Interstellar, you'd be like,
Exactly. Because that like, and Hans Zimmer uses music in Interstellar to like add to the movie, which doesn't have to happen, but when it does, it's nice.
Yeah, so for sound authenticity, pretty much just like
Like, I feel like Doug cares a lot about this. Well, I mean, most people would. Like, if you're shooting off like a gun and you're shooting off a rifle, but it sounds like a shotgun. Like, it needs to sound. If you're using a real
you want
sound, it needs to sound like the actual thing, not something else.
yeah
or
like a
if you're in a factory, it needs to sound like factory would sound in there.
yeah like a lot of these categories, it just needs to make sense in your movie. Like it just needs to match, and it needs to not just be a random sounds. The next one was directing.
So there's vision. It's kind of like the director's style. Like 300 has, like that dark
Mm-hmm.
style for the whole
Yeah, like,
the
the
whole
Dark
movie.
Knight has that like grittiness,
Yeah.
and realism. Yeah,
And then there's Execution.
I mean, I feel like execution is like, did you execute your goal?
yeah.
Like
Like, does it?
all the other previous elements that a director needs to think about whenever, or writers and all that, those kind of people are doing when they're writing the movie and shooting the movie and doing all that. It's like, did it actually, was it good, or was it executed correctly, or
And did
did
it?
one of those things not happen, which would hurt some of the other categories
Yeah,
or
and
elements.
like, did it hit the director's vision? Like, every director goes into it thinking this is what I want a movie to be like, and does he put that on the screen?
Yeah.
And
So
then
then the last one is It Factor. Um, and then the two sub elements are one of a kind. So, I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself.
yeah.
The example it gives here is Avatar, which when that shit came out, it was
Oh yeah, of course.
obviously one of a kind. And then Above and Beyond, a movie. I guess I probably shouldn't read word for word from the from Mr. Jasper's article. Okay, let me just cite my sources here.
I feel like Above and Beyond is when, you'll want to watch it again and again and again to look for like little things. Like those are the kind of movies I like, where like at the end it's something revealed maybe, and then you're like, other people who've watched it like a million times, like, oh yeah, you could notice that in this scene, or you can notice that, and whatever. So it's something, I feel like the Above and Beyond factor is something that, or element, it's something that kind of just keeps you coming back to the movie, and you're constantly kind of finding new little things.
It's
Yeah,
like when you it's like when you see a movie and you're like, holy shit.
exactly.
So
That one's
for
probably the least tangible of it. Like, you just kind of feel that one, I think.
for Aaron, it's like Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
For me, it's Star Wars. For Brianna, I don't know what the fuck that is for Brianna.
Maybe The Prestige. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think that one's just kind of feel it out, and you know when it has it.
Yeah.
All right, so we gonna send it or what?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I guess I will link this article also in the description of this episode, and then if anybody's ever curious in the future episodes, they can come back to this one and hear it. I guess, yeah, we'll jump in with number one, plot.
Story art.
Story arc. For this movie, it really opens immediately. You get a cold open, probably one of the most famous cold opens ever, and Drew Barrymore gets killed off immediately. And that, I think, actually is kind of our inciting incident as well. You get to see that there is somebody calling on a cell phone, and Drew Barrymore picks it up, and he basically talks her through this whole thing about scary movies. And when she gets a question wrong, fucking fillets her boyfriend open, and then hunts her down and kills her. And that's the first scene of the movie.
And I feel like in the first scene they did a lot of I don't know if I want to say cool things, but it's like towards the end of the cold open, like her parents are coming home, or you see like the car with her parents, and you're like, oh, they're gonna come and kind of save the day, but they don't.
Yeah, and it was really big at the time because, like, at this point, you had these big name actors and actresses come play in these movies, and they were the ones that would survive. And so they got Drew Barrymore, who I don't know if she was huge yet, but like, she was billed as the
She was
star
like
of
the
this movie.
face. Yeah, she was like the face of the poster, right?
Yeah, yeah, and everybody just figured that she would be the one, and then just gut her before the title even comes up. Really
Mm-hmm.
something cool there. As far as exposition goes, with the taking the cold open out, a lot of the lead up comes like in tangent with what's happening in the movie. It's not a movie where it just tries to lay everything down first. A lot of it happens there. You find out that, you know, Sidney Prescott's mom was murdered. Um,
In a
uh,
similar fashion, right?
yeah, and then it was exactly a year before our climax date happens. So that's important to know. And you basically just get to find out that this is a smaller town where the serial killer becoming a thing is a big deal. And you get, the news comes in and stuff like that. For Rising Action, it's the multiple attacks. Ghostface, who's our killer, is running around. He, obviously the cold opens a murder, but then he attacks Sydney later on, um, in her own house when she's alone, and he gets scared off by her boyfriend, and then the boyfriend gets arrested, and you kind of think it's him for a little bit, and then the Ghostface comes back around, and the whole school gets shut down, and then you have your it really builds to a night at a party. Stu, who is played by Matthew Lillard, he decides to throw this big party after the whole town basically gets put on a curfew, and that is the setting for our climax.
Yeah, so then Stu and Billy just fucking kill her.
Yeah.
Or at least try to kill everybody. They kill almost everybody.
Yeah. For our climax, it's actually I think it's really good. I mean, obviously now this movie's been out for a long time, so it's pretty well known that Billy and Stu it's a double killer kind of situation. But at the time, that would have been like revolutionary. You have your killer, and he's your killer, and that's it. And this movie throws a lot of red herrings at you, and even at points makes you think that Billy isn't the killer. But in the end, it's this weird bromance between Billy and Stu, and they're doing their thing, and they attempt to at this party kill everybody.
Not only do we find okay, I want to say two things. Not only do we find out that both of them are the killers, but that they were the ones that actually killed Sydney's mom, which I think is a huge plot point.
Yeah, because
it's a huge deal.
They framed this guy named Cotton Weary, who Gale Weathers is openly advocating that he's an innocent man. And that's kind of important because there's some tension between Gale and Sydney.
And the other thing I was going to say that is happening kind of all throughout the plot is that it's almost like mentioning horror movie. Is tropes the right word? Or
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So like there's this scene in like the what's that guy's name? It's the friend that works at the movie store.
The one who's obsessed with horror movies.
Yeah, the one who's like we're getting the dialogue kind of through him.
I forget his name in the movie, but it's played by Jamie Kennedy. That's the actor.
Yeah, so I feel like in 1996 when this movie came out, that was something that they did that I don't know if any other kind of horror movies had really done, which
for sure.
Well, yeah, I was gonna wait to discuss it more until we get to the characters, but like every character is like a stereotype horror movie character, except for Sydney.
And to Brianna's point, I believe I looked it up and it references like 26 scary movies throughout this whole movie. So they were just name dropping shit the entire time.
But I guess going back to the plot, I feel like it flows pretty well.
Yeah, looking at one of the things about plot is that we were looking at was stakes. The whole like stake of the whole time in the movie, she's on a timer getting hunted down by Ghostface, and if she isn't able to stop it, like she dies, and so that's all good. The climax I think is executed really well. It is a little long. I think it rolls a little bit long in the end. You get like fake outs after fake out after fake out, which it kind of plays into the movie itself, so it makes sense. But there were some points where I was like, Jesus Christ, let's go.
Did you do you remember the first time you watched this movie? Were you surprised?
I was very young. I actually wasn't like Scream isn't a movie that I really was a fan of, to be completely honest. Like I had seen it when I was really young, And my dad like showed me it, but I wasn't involved too much in it. I was like too young for it to be my own decision to watch it, and my dad was too old to like because like the movies he showed me was like he showed me Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and stuff like that. So it's in that weird space in between those, like that movie and like Saw and stuff, where like I wasn't watching it with my friends, and I wasn't watching it with my dad. So, what about you?
I mean, I was just trying to ask you if, like, the if the reveal of who
No.
the killer were.
By the time I got to the point where I watched it, knowing I knew everything already. So,
Yeah, I can't remember because, like you said, I watched this movie so fucking long ago that I can't remember if.
I feel like it's a known thing too. Like everybody knows now that like it's a double killer, Billy and Stu in the first one. And that's what's kind of important about this new one is like nobody knows who the killer is, and that's all fun.
Yeah. So anyway, in the end, Courtney Cox's character waxes Billy.
Billy. After Stu dies via Billy as well, right? Billy, they go on like this.
Well, no, Sydney kills him. I mean, like he's pretty injured by Billy, but
Oh, it's a TV, right?
Sydney's the one
Yeah.
that like they're fighting, and then she like knocks the TV on him, and I mean, that's how he eventually dies. But I mean, he was pretty wounded before that. I feel like so it made it kind of easy for her to beat him.
Doesn't she shoot Billy again while he's already like pretty much dead? Like,
yeah,
in the fucking head.
Well, he like jumps back up.
Yeah, he was like they always whatever that character. I think his name's Kenny. I don't know.
Randy.
Yep, I knew it was like a Y or something. Randy's like, be careful. They always do a second jump or something, and they're all staring at him, and then he does, and she's like, boom, right in the head. Doesn't even flinch.
All right. So, do we have any issues with the story arc?
Real quick, I just want to say if Gale Weathers was pointing the gun at Malignant and or V for Vendetta, that dude would have been capped.
If she remembered to take the safety off.
Sydney's the one that shoots him in the head.
Oh, is it Sydney that's shooting him?
Well, Gale shoots him first, like Billy first, and then when they're all like, I'm pretty sure,
like in the shoulder.
She shoots him in the shoulder, but then Sydney's the one that shoots him in the head.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, that makes sense. You have your final girl kill your main villain. That's how it goes. Anyway, to answer Doug's question, I don't have any problem with the plot. I think the plot actually works really well. It's all believable. It's all flowy. The events actually have weight to them. So I'm all good with it.
I think it's pretty good. I don't have any issues with it. How about you?
No, I agree. I feel like I think it's a solid plot.
So for plausibility, I think Aaron just mentioned it. I think this is actually based on a true story, right?
I don't know about that.
I think I was reading inspired by the real life case of the Gainesville Ripper.
Interesting. I mean, nothing's crazy.
Probably has nothing to do with it.
It's really grounded. There's no supernatural things going on. It kind of seems like it at some points because it kind of feels like Ghostface teleporting, but then the reveal of two killers is like that makes sense. It's all really grounded. For plausibility, I think this movie is one of the most plausible of the slashers.
I agree. Yeah. I feel like nobody watches this and is like, that would never, or that could never happen. Or, I mean, especially like now, like today watching it, like, yeah, like.
And also just being so meta, like that kind of increases it. Like it knows what it's like copying here and it's making it in like a realistic way.
I think we can move on to attraction. And the first point here is the premise. So, I think the movie has a pretty, it's just a standard horror movie premise.
Yeah, it's just a straightforward slasher. It makes sense to me. There's nothing wild going on here.
I think back then the phone call shit they do in every horror movie now. I think back then it probably hit a lot harder.
And it's probably worth mentioning also the meta aspect of it. I know I've said it a lot now, but
Say
it-
meta one more fucking time.
that really was something back then. That wasn't something that happened. And nowadays we get these movies, I mean, pretty frequently. Cabin in the Woods is one that comes up top of my head. They're like, it's supposed, like, it is, they're made in this image of Scream. So
Entertainment value?
it entertained me watching it.
Yes. Yeah, because especially I feel like back then when you're watching it, you are really focused on, like who is Ghostface, and
Yeah.
like the whole time. I mean, even when Ghostface isn't in the scenes, you're looking at the characters like,
Mhm.
could it be this person, or could it be this person? Like, I don't remember exactly when I first watched it, but I feel like I remember like one of my first times watching it. At one point, I thought it was Dewey because we hadn't seen him on screen in a while, and
Yeah.
so like,
I mean, they scream, everybody's a suspect in the movie.
even when like slashes and like scary stuff isn't happening, you're still entertained by the thought of, could it be this person? Could it be this person? So on and so on. And so I feel like it has a good entertainment value. Well,
Yeah.
and especially in the first movie, or in the first cold open, like we kind of already talked about, where Drew Barrymore was the face, and then it like within 10 minutes she's dead. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Really draws your interest in. I think also as a horror movie fan, just seeing so many things shouted out, and at this point it was so saturated by slashers. Like we had all the big slashers already, have multiple sequels. This was probably when it came out something really cool to see all those things like paid homage to, but it's not the exact same thing happening.
And then obviously at the end, finding out that there was two killers, and that, throughout the movie they're talking about Sydney's mom being murdered, and they have like that subplot kind of going on, as if is Cotton innocent or not, and then to find out that there was two killers, I feel,
Yeah, I
kind of drove it home.
yeah, I agree.
Even in 2022 here, it's still entertaining, so it's pretty good. So theme. So the first thing is identity.
I think it's it's pretty easy just to say, like, everybody knows what Scream is. It has an identity, and it's a solid one.
Yeah,
It's really
just
carved itself out.
Anyway, sorry. For the identity, I mean, I feel like the film knows its identity. It doesn't try to like stray away from that. It is a scary movie all throughout, like we've talked about. It's talking about like the scary movie tropes, and I don't feel like it tries to take on a bunch of different identities. It knows what it is, and it does it well.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too. I think the humor is pretty good.
Yes. I would agree. Like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but then also it is kind of serious in a way, but like doesn't. I feel like it blurs the line of like comedy and scary movie or horror movie or whatever, very nicely.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of movies like that try to do that get goofy, and I don't think it ever gets goofy. I think it, at least in this first movie, stays pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. It has like comedic relief almost, and then but still it stays more true to the scary part than it does to the comedy part.
And it's kind of gory too. I didn't
Yes.
realize that like is some pretty gory stuff in here. Specifically with the cold open, Drew Barrymore's fucking gutted.
So what message is the movie trying to send?
I think it's just trying to be a parody of like horror movies, but also be a good slasher. Like I think it is. I think the message is everybody knows these tropes, but we can still make them entertaining.
And we can still add our own twist at the end.
Yeah,
That no one would probably see coming.
Yeah, I don't think there's like anything else other than that going on subtext wise. I mean, maybe the fact that like it was an argument for a long time that scary movies and like video games and stuff would cause like people to do these acts, and I think that this movie takes that head on and kind of uses that as a message as well, which I just want to point out. I believe now multiple studies have disproved. So
Yeah. So intrigue are the themes intriguing. So if it was a standard like slasher, I think people would be bored with it, but since it's
especially in 1996.
Scream pretty much brought the slasher genre back, which was almost dead at
Yeah.
the time.
I mean, I don't remember exactly, but at this point, like, you were getting like 5, 6, 7 sequels of Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street that, like, those were going straight to video. That was a dying thing.
Yeah, so because it's like, you know, kind of embracing / making fun of the standard horror movie stuff is what makes it intriguing, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
No, I agree. It's not just a slasher. It's actually something tangible and entertaining.
All right, so acting, characters.
For like written characters, if they're written well, I mean, you had the template already. You just have to make everybody into tropes to kind of fit your theme of the movie. So, yeah, I mean, I think it does that.
So who do y'all think was the best written character then?
I mean, Sydney's good. Like, she has her own little thing going on throughout the entire movie of dealing with her mom's trauma, but also, and like, weirdly enough, the whole like sex plot line with Billy, like, that's kind of relevant. With her trauma and stuff like that. I think she's written pretty well. I think the least written one is Tatum. Like, she's kind of like she's playing that best friend role that gets murdered. She's kind of just there a lot of the time. So,
Well, and
that's probably on
I think
purpose.
all the characters in this movie are actually good because they're all like intentionally supposed to be a stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. Was you had your formula and you just had to follow it, and I think it did that.
So, she's got her hoe friend, she's got
Her boyfriend.
her
Like
boyfriend.
creepy
She has
boyfriend.
she kind of has like an enemy that's turns out not to actually be her enemy.
The nerdy virgin horror movie.
Yep. Exactly. I mean,
lover,
they weren't quite like stoner. Like in new movies, they would be like the stoner character. I don't think we were quite there yet. But like if this movie was made today, Randy's smoking pot at least once or twice in this movie.
Yeah. The useless new police officer, the TV reporter. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Stern dad.
Yeah. Then we move on to acting performance. Like Aaron said, nobody's like, this isn't
Schindler's List.
It's not fucking Tom Hanks when Wilson falls off the fucking post. Wilson! But
I mean, I feel like like in this movie for performance, everybody performs how they need to perform. Like they don't.
None of it's like bad.
No, none of. I don't feel like any of the performance was bad. It was good for what it was. It wasn't like none of it like moved my heart or made me cry or anything. But I mean,
there's definitely some slasher movies that have like bad acting, and this one's I think way better than any of some of those.
Yeah.
Like, this is
I think for this movie it helps, and I know we've probably mentioned this like 5 times now, but I think the fact that they made this like a scary movie trope kind of thing helps like all of these other things almost fall into place to where it's not bad, it's good, it's not, it's not anything. I mean, it's nothing but good.
Heath Ledger Joker.
Yeah, it's not Heath Ledger Joker and anything like that, but it fulfilled the purpose of what it was trying to do.
If you take out like the twists and the meta stuff out of it, I still think the acting is some of the best in slashers.
Said meta again.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg's coming for you.
I do want to say Matthew Lillard in this movie is my favorite character. And I don't know, like I just feel like he's so off the fucking leash doing like his tongue's always hanging out. He's like drooling at one point. If anybody really like goes for it, it's him. Everybody else is doing like a good solid acting performance. I feel like for whatever reason, he's just doing it. And I really appreciate it. A lot of the stuff he does is very funny to me. Like, if I had to
I would,
pick one character, that's my dude.
I would agree.
All right. So, dialogue. Storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's none of it's egregiously like bad. Like none of it is like I have to have my character say this to move the plot forward, but it sounds weird. You know what I'm talking about in movies when characters like they have to say something to keep it going, but it sounds so weird. Um, None of it's like that. I mean, all of the dialogue's believable, but it still does a good job of keeping it rolling.
Yeah, like when they mention about Sydney's mom, it's like Tatum does it in like a nonchalant, like she's making a joke or making fun of someone or something, and then she's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, oops," and then you're like, "Wait, what?" So they don't even come out right out and say like, a year ago your mom died, or someone's like, "It's the 1 year," like it eventually comes up in the movie that it's 1 year, but that's not how it's introduced. It's kind of introduced like nonchalantly,
Yeah.
and it like kind of perks your interest.
Yeah, perfect example.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much the dialogue does pretty solid job of giving you what you need for the story to move on.
And like another quick example, like your main character doesn't show up to school the next day knowing that this happened. It's somebody kind of tells her.
Yeah.
So like as the audience, like we know it happened, but it wasn't. They're
Imagine
not
life before cell phones.
or Twitter or social media, basically. So I mean, I just feel like that speaks again to like the storytelling of we're kind of looking at it. I mean, as the audience, we know, but like when it goes to Sydney, if it takes kind of Sydney's perspective, and I think it takes it pretty well.
Yeah.
Her dad's not at the Hilton. He's just fucking gone off the face of the earth.
What's the next one?
Context.
It could be a lot worse. Like there's some things they say that's a little dated, but I mean, it all sounds pretty normal.
All right. Cinematography.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. I just thought of something about context.
Let it rip.
I feel like for context, I feel like, and especially in 1996, it does this really well because I don't know, like anyone else out there like me that listens like true crime, anytime it's like in the 90s, it's like, these people didn't think that this would happen. And it kind of goes back to like the whole school knows at a point in the movie that this happened. And you still have people kind of like wearing the ghost face mask, making a joke about it. Stu throwing the party, being like, no, we'll be safe. I mean, well, obviously he knew it was going to happen, but, everybody thinking that they would be safe there and that it's not going to happen to them. And I feel like for context, especially in 1996, like that is how people kind of thought.
Also, people like not locking their doors back then.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think it does a good job of introduction of phones too. Like phones were starting to become a big deal at this time, and the use of cell phones was kind of like pioneering in this movie. That wouldn't have been a huge thing, because like they can track the cell phones and stuff like that. To kind of figure out who is calling Sydney throughout this movie. That's kind of a cool thing too.
So, in closing on that, I think the context is very relevant for the 1996.
Yeah, it's good.
Obviously not relevant now, but for 1996 when it was made, I think the context is there.
All right, cinematography, visual language. So, I mean, there's nothing special in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's shots that are kind of cool. Like most of them though come with the editing, and we haven't got quite there yet. But like, there's some cool shots of Ghostface walking up. Yeah, your jump scares and stuff has to do with cinematography. It's all pretty standards. I mean, it's shot really well for a slasher movie.
Yeah. It's
but
just good. It's not like
competent.
It's not like
This isn't Blade Runner 2049.
All right, lighting, setting, and wardrobe. I feel like all that's just great. I don't think we really need to talk about it much.
Oh
Feel
yeah,
like they're all wearing shit that they would be wearing
it all makes sense.
back then.
The setting is just your typical like smaller, not super small town, but smaller town of people that they're all friends and stuff like that. You know your deputy and stuff running around, so yeah, I
Yep.
mean it's all pretty good.
Stu's house is nice when it
Whose
pans
house
out,
is
like kind
nice
of at
as
the end.
fuck.
I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I want a big house like that. And then, you see all the horror movies with big houses like that, and you're like, maybe I don't want a big house like that. But secretly I do. I don't know.
There's a lot of places for bad guys to hide.
I
know,
want to know like how much that's worth. How rich are Stu's parents?
Well, adjusting for inflation. All right, editing and effects. Editing, pace and tone.
Good. I think it's all solid, one cohesive. You can tell it's all like it doesn't feel like a bunch of different movies. It's all one thing. And the pacing's good too. I mean, I was never bored. There's not long scenes of like what's happening or like when are we going to get to this. All of it's kind of really flowy. The events are spaced out nicely. You get your Ghostface attacks every 20 or so minutes, 30 minutes or so, and that's nice.
Yeah, I feel like you're not watching the whole movie being like, when is Ghostface gonna attack Sydney, like our main character? That kind of happens in the beginning, and then throughout the whole movie, like
Yeah,
I almost was gonna say exactly what you just said about you get like your Ghostface kills, almost like every 20 minutes, so you're kind of going, you're entertained, you're intrigued, you're watching to see what's gonna happen next.
All right. Effects. Visual effects and special effects.
I really think the only visual effects here is the jump scares, and I think they're decent. They're nothing crazy. Like you get your classic like shows up in the window in the very beginning, stuff like that. I
Well, I
guess
mean,
where do you want to lump kills at? Are that being effects?
yeah, I guess effects probably includes like, the blood.
The cold
Yeah.
open.
That cold open's brutal.
That motherfucker's guts everywhere are in effect.
Tatum's is pretty cool too. I don't know how plausible that is, but like getting stuck in the cat garage door and getting like killed, like broken neck from the garage door going up is pretty cool.
I mean, I want to say the motor wouldn't be strong enough to actually lift you, but
yeah, I don't know,
Oh,
but
that's
it's
fair.
cool either way. We can just pretend like we'll pretend she's like 30 pounds.
Let me go in the garage and break my garage door to find out.
Yeah, Ghostface himself, the design is just like it's just a standard killer. Although I do think it is something kind of unique.
Well, it's supposed to be like intentionally, like not
Yeah,
remarkable.
but at the same time, somehow it has become remarkable. Like everybody knows Ghostface, so that's kind of cool. How it took something on purpose to be like discreet, and now has turned into like an icon.
Yeah, and then a good thing for this movie is, of course, being shot in 1996. If they had some kind of special effects in the movie, they would be obviously terrible today. So they literally didn't have any. So it's all gravy.
Yeah, I do. It helps with the realness of it's supposed to be grounded and keeping it all like real. Like I say, real, keeping it all practical blood and practical like effects makes it more believable. You're throwing around digital blood and stuff like that, it starts getting a little weird.
Yeah.
That doesn't come to like I don't know, probably like 4 more years when we start getting a lot of that stuff in horror in the early 2000s.
All right, sound and music.
Um,
Music harmony.
music's cool. It's nothing crazy. There's not like I do like at some points they use the Halloween score, which is kind of fun. Yeah, I mean other than that, it's just your typical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all the music makes sense.
yeah, it's nothing.
The rest
It's
of the
not
movie.
Hans Zimmer up here making music, but it's all cohesive.
So for the authenticity, I mean, there's not really much.
That's the problem you have when you run into a well-made movie is like, what is there
There's not.
to complain about with the sound? It all sounds normal. It sounds real. So just like the other one, just lump it in like, yep, good movie, did a good job.
Now, there's not really any sounds that need to be like. We're not in fucking airplanes in this movie, or
How was the gunshot? Does it sound like a gunshot?
uh, it didn't trigger me, but the Dewey always having his fucking finger on the trigger was bothering me. But I know he's intentionally supposed to be like a bad,
Dude,
questionable police officer. So
And that doesn't fall in with the sound.
yeah. So directing, vision.
the vision obviously was to make something new and fresh to the slasher. Mission accomplished. This is like,
Or take
This-
something that was kind of old and make it better. Or like the tropes and
yeah, this
make
this inspired so much. It started such a movement that I don't think you can say the vision wasn't hit. I mean, it definitely was.
Well, that goes into the next point. Execution. Was the vision executed? Which
yes.
yes.
I haven't talked to Wes personally, but I would believe so.
I bet if you asked him today, he would say yes. At least
I think he's dead.
after the first movie came. Oh, rest in peace.
All right. So it factor. Is it one of a kind?
So I guess for this one, we should probably just take it like person by person, because this is the most like, how do you feel about it, right? Well, I guess the second part of this is
I mean, one of a kind is pretty.
for the time 100%.
Yeah, like it's a slasher movie making fun of other slasher movies, kind of. So
But doing it in a way that's like not stupid. It's like kind of cool,
Yeah.
and also like it's still a cool slasher. Like there's still cool gore and stuff like that happening.
anything to add on that one?
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I mean, like y'all just said, that makes it one of a kind. And then, of course, at the end, having the two killers was one of a kind back
Oh, yeah.
in the day. So, I mean, all of that kind of combined, especially the ending, does kind of, I think, does make it one of a kind.
I mean, also your quote unquote final girl in this movie, like she is kind of a one of a kind final girl as well. Like she's your typical badass, but like she has sex. That doesn't only happen in movies. And she has like trauma throughout this whole movie.
Yep. So above and beyond. Does it go above the status quo? Is it transcendent? So
Yes.
Aaron says yes. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah. I mean, just like what we said earlier, it started something so big. It's hard to say it's not transcendent. Like Scream is synonymous with this meta. Like,
Oh my god.
I don't. What else can I call it? It's meta, dude. I don't know what else to say. Scream is synonymous with this idea of a movie that knows it's a movie making fun of other movies.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say yes as well. Just like if you show like that mask, everybody knows like, oh, that's Scream. So like Yeah.
I mean, how many times? I don't know if you were, but I was Ghostface like multiple times for Halloween.
Nah,
Multiple.
I wasn't.
He's just like he was just cool. I don't know. And we had like the blood that like the mask that would fill with blood, and it came with a knife that would fill for blood. People know what I'm talking about. They've definitely seen it.
Brianna?
I would agree with both of what you're saying. I feel like it does go above and beyond. I mean, like in this article, it's talking about leaving like an imprint, and I definitely feel like it leaves an imprint with just the things that we're talking about, how people dressed up, had like the bloody knife. I mean, if it didn't, there wouldn't be a new Scream movie coming out. And I mean, from what I'm hearing, like the people who've seen it early are really enjoying it and liking it. So, I mean, today it wouldn't be coming out if, I mean, this one wasn't as good as it was.
So yeah, overall, Scream, the original, great movie.
Yeah. Do you wanna just have a section after this where it's like we can just add anything we wanna add? Because there's a couple things I wanna talk about.
Well, let it rip.
Um,
Additional thoughts.
yeah.
Element 11.
So for me, with um Jamie Kennedy's character, I really liked the like humor and stuff he was adding. And the part I liked specifically that I wanted to shout out is whenever Ghostface is behind him and he's gonna kill him, and he's watching Halloween, and Michael in Halloween is right behind Jamie. He's yelling like, "Jamie, right behind you, Jamie, Jamie," and his name is Jamie. Like Jamie Kennedy's the actor who plays it, so it like transcends into like double meta because he's like,
I was about to ask, is it meta, you know?
yeah, definitely meta. But I think that seems really funny to me and really cool. I just wanted to shout it out because it's one of my faves.
Yeah, that shit was pretty good.
And also, I want to say that Billy and Stu, their villain monologue thing where they're like stabbing each other and like all that stuff is so good. And it's like I don't know what it is about it, but the acting and the culmination of like Matthew Lillard just doing some like drool shit everywhere and they're stabbing each other. Like that's all really fun to me.
So we've kind of talked about the essential elements for the movie. Thank you, MG Jasper. And now to trigger MG Jasper, instead of, doing his more objective review format, I think we should just drop our own personal review of how much we like the movie.
Okay.
1 to 10. Let it rip.
I'm going with a 9. I think it's great. I really enjoyed it, and I you know what? I enjoyed it a lot more than I even thought I was going to.
Brianna?
I'm also gonna say a 9. I enjoyed it too. To the fact where last night when we watched it, I'm still it's one of those things where, where Tatum is in the garage. I literally asked Doug, I'm like, because I know, knowing the ending that it's Billy and Stu, being like, I wonder if this is Billy doing this or
Yeah.
is this Stu doing this? And so the fact that I'm watching this, over 20 years or 20 years, right? Over 20 years later, and they're still, even though it's like a movie that everybody knows, and even I've watched multiple times, I'm still kind of going back to like, it's one of those things where I'm watching it and I'm thinking new things because I already know stuff. Or like I'm just noticing when they're first talking about the killer, Stu being like, it can't be a girl because blah, 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 blah. And obviously he's saying that knowing that, he's part of the killer.
And also,
Or
like
how,
Billy too is like, because Stu's like, "Hey man, I didn't kill anybody," and Billy's like, "Nobody said you did." And that's all fun, and like
yeah.
knowing the killers, that's fun.
Yeah, and how like you're watching it now and Billy's like almost overly trying to convince Sydney that it's not him and um so yeah, I would say overall 9. It's still enjoyable to watch even today.
For my rating, I might be triggering you guys, but I'm going to give it just a 7. It's just a solid movie that is enjoyable for me. It's not
Hey man, we're not getting triggered anymore. You
it's
like
not
it or you don't. That's all up to you.
I've got V for Vendetta at a 7.75, and I like that more than this movie. So this one's just if I was gonna watch a movie and I was trying to pick like some really good shit that I love, I wouldn't pick this movie, but it's still pretty good.
I feel like this is a good like party movie. Everybody's like chilling, talking, hanging out, and you can just throw this movie on, and it's still kind of like it's entertainment in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that pretty much wraps this episode up. I guess we'll be reviewing Scream 2022 in the next
Yeah, I plan on we'll
some
plan
amount
on
of
having a
time.
premiere week with it, so we'll see how that goes. This would have been the second episode this week, by the way. So *Malignant* would have already come out. So we just want to do this because Scream 2022 is coming out on Thursday. So wanted to put this out there before then. Kind of like a bonus episode.
Anyways, you want to wrap it up, Chief?
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. Great. Sure.
This is where you come in.
Yeah, everybody, you can follow us on Twitter at ThrillKillPod. You can follow us and subscribe on YouTube as well. That would be really helpful. We just put it up. It's just Thrills and Killers podcast. And yeah, that's all my stuff.
We'll see you motherfuckers next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.